All right, let's jump right into one of the absolute biggest mysteries of our time. Welcome to This Explainer, where we're taking a really structured look at the fascinating and honestly often misunderstood world of UFOs. We're going to break down the data, the history, and some massive recent declassifications to uncover the hidden patterns behind these sightings. And we're kicking things off with an unbelievable physics-defying encounter from just recently in 2023. Picture this for a second. At an undisclosed location right here in the US, federal agents are out on a routine evening operation. Suddenly, they witness a bizarre glowing orange orb just hovering in the sky. And this was not some isolated hallucination. Over 2 days, 3 different teams, that's 6 highly trained federal officers, reported seeing the exact same thing, even giving sworn statements to the government. It really begs the question, are we actually being watched? And if so, by who? Now, what's totally wild here is that these objects performed maneuvers that completely defy our basic laws of physics and inertia. The agents didn't just see a static light. They watched this massive orange orb literally launch smaller red orbs, almost like a mothership rapidly deploying drones. And it gets crazier. The source material points to another encounter in 2025, where an intelligence official in a helicopter watched an orb instantaneously jump 20 miles away the second they approached. Plus, in 2023, military infrared off the coast of Greece captured an object taking a 90-degree turn at 80 miles per hour. No known human aircraft can survive those kinds of G-forces. Fast forward to May 2026, and out of nowhere, the U.S. Department of War drops this massive bombshell. They release exactly 162 previously classified files, videos, and images on a brand new public UFO portal. We're talking FBI documents, Pentagon reports, NASA transcripts, the whole shebang. It was a huge data dump that absolutely threw the public into a frenzy. But hey, before we automatically jump to the conclusion that this portal is proof of little green men, let's just pause and clarify what a UFO actually is. It simply stands for Unidentified Flying Object. It just means there's something in the sky, and at this exact moment, we don't have enough data to explain it. Culturally, we've wrongly assumed this exclusively means alien, but in reality, it's just an investigative blank space. And this isn't just an American obsession either. The sources show a truly global phenomenon spanning nearly 8 decades. From New Mexico in 47 to Germany in 48, the Soviet border in 52, all the way to recent sightings in Iraq, Syria, and Japan. UFOs are being tracked across continents and eras. But the mystery isn't confined to Earth's atmosphere, right? It extends into space. To understand that, we need to look at a very earthly military term, bogey. This is a standard combat term used by pilots to describe an unidentified, potentially hostile aircraft or missile. It is a word meant for the battlefield, not the vacuum of space. Which brings us to this incredible quote. Back in 1965, during the Gemini 7 mission, astronaut Frank Borman radios Houston and says, "Bogey at 10 o'clock high." So the million-dollar question is, why would a highly trained astronaut use a terrestrial combat term 4 hours into a spaceflight? Ground control thought it must be a booster rocket, but Borman confirmed he could see the booster separately. He was looking at a distinct, unidentified third object in orbit. And Borman definitely wasn't alone in seeing strange things out there. The Apollo missions reported a whole series of fascinating lunar anomalies. Apollo 11 and 12 crews observed everything from unexplained flashing lights inside the cabin to unusual particles near their landing site on the moon. And perhaps most intriguingly, a photo from the Apollo 17 mission in 1972 captured 3 distinct physical dots hovering above the moon in a triangular formation. To this day, preliminary government analysis suggests they could be physical objects, but nobody knows exactly what they were. So, how did this whole cultural obsession actually start? Well, it all kicked off in 1947 when a pilot named Kenneth Arnold saw 9 shining objects moving at impossible speeds. He described their movement as skipping like a saucer would if you skipped it across water. The media totally misunderstood his words, focusing on the shape rather than the motion. And boom, the flying saucer was born. Weeks later, strange debris was found at a farm in Roswell, adding massive fuel to the fire. By 1952, unexplained objects were swarming the skies over Washington, D.C., leading the U.S. government to launch Project Blue Book to investigate the whole thing. Now, Project Blue Book ran for 17 years and investigated over 12,000 cases. The vast majority easily explained away as weather balloons, airplanes, or just misidentified planets. But here is the number that keeps the mystery alive: 701. Out of all those thousands of investigations, exactly 701 cases remained completely 100% unexplainable. Section 1. The Hidden Military Pattern. Connecting the dots across decades of sightings. It's super easy to get swept up in the sci-fi fantasy of it all, but when you step back and look at the data across all these decades, a very terrestrial, very logical pattern emerges. In the 1950s and 60s, sightings spiked around the Soviet border in Germany, the exact hotspots of the Cold War. In the 2020s, sightings spiked in places like Iraq, Syria, and the Indo-Pacific. The aha moment here is that UFO sightings consistently spike exactly where the U.S. military is most active and where they deploy their most advanced monitoring systems. This military connection actually explains a lot of history's greatest UFO myths. Take Roswell, for instance. The claim was always crashed flying saucers and recovered alien bodies. But decades later, the declassified Project Mogul revealed the reality. The debris came from top-secret Cold War spy balloons designed to monitor Soviet nuclear tests. And those so-called alien bodies? The Air Force later confirmed they were actually crash test dummies used for high-altitude drops. So you might be wondering, why didn't the government just tell people it was a balloon? Well, because allowing the alien rumors to flourish provided the absolute perfect cover-up. It acted as an ultimate smokescreen. It hid their espionage activities against the Soviet Union, it perfectly masked the testing of highly advanced military aircraft, and it averted potential international crises. For the military, a public obsessed with aliens was honestly an incredibly useful distraction. Section 2. The Real UFO Explanations. Demystifying the Modern Aerial Anomalies. Okay, so if the flying saucers of the 1950s were actually spy balloons and test planes, what is triggering these physics-defying encounters today? What are those federal agents actually seeing? The source data points to cutting-edge terrestrial technology. We're talking Chinese high-altitude balloons, advanced mothership drones capable of carrying smaller units, and foreign surveillance tools like Iranian and Houthi drones operating in the Middle East. Add in natural phenomena and satellite reflections, and the vast majority of modern UFOs are suddenly very easily explainable. And this isn't just guesswork either. In 2024, the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, released a massive comprehensive report. They unequivocally stated that there is zero evidence of extraterrestrial technology or secret government reverse engineering programs. Most UFOs, they concluded, are just ordinary objects, drones, balloons, or satellites. Section 3. The Distraction Tactic. The Political Weaponization of Mystery. Which brings us to a really fascinating question. If the government knows that these anomalies are mostly foreign drones and weather balloons, why suddenly dump 162 uncontextualized files onto a public portal? According to the sources we're analyzing today, these uncontextualized file dumps are reported to be a highly calculated political tactic. The sources claim this move, specifically attributed to the Trump administration, was designed to generate massive media noise. By releasing these UFO files without the scientific analysis attached, it fuels conspiracies and pseudoscience. The source explicitly notes this was done as smoke and mirrors to distract from political failures and controversies, including an effort to mask discussions around the Epstein files. The sources argue this is a deliberate strategy of weaponizing mystery to redirect public attention. There's a quote from the source that perfectly encapsulates this strategy. Mystery thrives where transparency is absent. The analysis argues that by deliberately leaving out the context and the mundane explanations, officials ensure the public gets completely lost in wild science fiction conspiracies, rather than keeping their focus on real-world issues. But look, even as we demystify the cover-ups and the spy drones, we do have to acknowledge the data. A tiny fraction of these encounters still genuinely lack a mundane explanation. The 3 physical dots in the Apollo 17 photos, that object pulling 90-degree turns off the coast of Greece, Frank Borman's bogey in space. These unexplained exceptions are what keep that spark of wonder alive for scientists and enthusiasts alike. At the end of the day, as much as we might want to look up at the night sky and believe we're witnessing interstellar visitors, we have to follow the scientific method. As the famous adage goes, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Until we have undeniable proof, we must look for terrestrial patterns. But it does leave us with one final, kind of unsettling thought. If even a fraction of those 701 unexplained cases truly defy human technology, exactly who or what is watching us?